Hey guys, today I'm going to have an interview with Steve Sherk of Sherk's Guide Service in Pennsylvania. He's in that western part near the Allegheny Forest. Now, there's very few people that I trust personally on giving any information that I'm going to listen to. Steve's one of those guys. And Steve is very, very familiar with big woods. The Allegheny National Forest is massive. So he knows big woods, he knows bucks, and I can't wait for you guys to see this interview. So here we go. All right, guys, here we are back in the trophy room here. And tonight we're with Steve Sherk of Sherk's Guide Service. I'm really happy that he's agreed to do this. I was watching a video of you last night, and I kept saying to myself, holy crap, this guy is me in Pennsylvania. I mean, we think exactly the same, so that's kind of cool. So the only difference is you hunt more with a bow, I take it. You do both.
Mm-hmm.
Bow and gun?
I probably bow hunt a little bit more, but our gun season's pretty short anyway, so I love both though.
Ours is long, and I hunt with old antique firearms, so that's my thing. So anyways, so what do you do for work other than guide?
Yeah, I do landscaping and snow removal in the wintertime. I've had my own landscaping business, now probably at least 15 years. I pretty much did it right out of high school, and it's one of those things I didn't really expect it to do it, for a career, but it started on the side, and next thing you know, you're doing it 40 hours a week, and it became a full-time thing. So that's kind of how the guiding blended in well. Is the landscaping slower in the fall, and so I do guiding in the fall and the snow plowing in the winter, and keep busy that way.
Yeah, there you go. It kind of takes up some space and gives you a little bit more time to hunt.
Absolutely. There was also other reasons related to hunting why I chose landscaping.
Yeah.
Just because of more time in the woods.
So why did you? Okay, so as far as guide service, what is the requirements in Pennsylvania to be a guide?
There's really not a whole lot to it. It's not like up in Maine where you have the registered badge or anything. Depends on where you guide in Pennsylvania. I guide in a lot of different public land, no private. But one part that we guide is called the Allegheny National Forest, and I have to have a special permit for there. A lot of other places, all you really need is insurance. So it's pretty easy to become a guide in Pennsylvania, but it's not easy being a guide either. So if that makes sense, a lot of people think guiding's just the easiest, most perfect job, and it's far from the truth.
Let's get into the deer, and I kind of want to focus on specific deer, because the way I hunt and the way a lot of the guys, why they're watching my channel and doing these things, is because I focus on a single deer and go after that deer, and I'll eat tags all day long until I get it. So
sure.
Now, first off, because we're the Quest for 200, that's the one channel. Do you guys weigh your deer down there?
Oh yeah, that's a big thing for me. Not saying everyone, but because we hunt big woods, and a lot of times it's hard to get them out. A lot of guys pack their deer out, but I hate doing that because a lot of times I like to weigh it. To me, I get just as much excitement out of a deer pushing 200 pounds and would be, any kind of score. Just a big, old, mature, big woods buck is all I need. It doesn't really even matter what the antlers are at that point. So not that I don't like big antlers, but body
Who
is
doesn't?
this is cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So in Pennsylvania, to get to 200 pounds, what would the age range be for a deer that size?
I would say at least 4, but probably that 4 to 6 year old range. Some of them I even noticed over the years, I think have lost a little weight. Some of them, 7, 8, 9 year olds or somewhere in that ballpark. They probably are losing a lot of their teeth and chewing ability, and becomes harder to eat, and just age and stress and all that. But yeah, I think that 4 to 6 range is where you're going to see your biggest, healthiest bucks.
Yeah, I agree. So how much does shed hunting play into your preseason planning? And is there much correlation to where the sheds are when you find them to zeroing in on a big buck?
For us, it all kind of depends on the winter. I really like mild winters because it seems like I can relate what the deer do and towards, related to hunting season if it's a mild winter and the conditions are similar. But then if you have a really bad winter and the deer kind of pushed into those yarding areas, then it doesn't seem like you're going to find them in there as much in the, early archery season or even, a lot of times in gun season. So a lot of it just depends on the winter, but no matter what, finding a big shed, it gets you to a starting point. I've found sheds of several deer that eventually, I was able to get on or hunt. A few of them I've killed. So I definitely think shed hunting is an added tool that can, definitely benefit, a hunter the upcoming season when he finds particular sheds.
Now, do you set a goal each year for how many you want to get? You like?
No, I'm not a numbers guy at all. Like actually,
No?
well, 2 years ago, I wanted to hit 50 and I think I hit like 56 or something. Mm-hmm. But when you talked about targeting specific deer, like I like to target specific deer for sheds. To me, like, if you fail to kill a buck in the past season, the shed is like, it's kind of like you're, I don't know, redeeming yourself or, but that's what I do a lot. Like I'll usually pick out 5 or 6 bucks that I know made it after the season, as long as I know they're still out there, and then I'll target them. And if I only found 3 or 4 sheds out of the 5 or 6 bucks that I was really targeting, I'd be just as happy with that than finding 30 or 40 sheds.
Yep, I hear that. That's kind of how we do it here. I mean, I used to be the number. I wanted to get to 50. I wanted to get to 30. I wanted to get to 40. But now that I'm after certain bucks, if I get 2 sheds and they're match set, I'm good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, but
that's another thing.
I'm kind of lying too, because I just got piles of them everywhere. So,
no, that's what's so cool about being a deer hunter is like, if you're certain other sports or hobbies, there's kind of like a starting and an end, but deer hunting, there's always something going on, whether it's shed hunting or checking trail cameras and scouting certain times of the year. It's just, you can always be doing something and having fun as a deer hunter.
I agree. I used to bass fish.
Oh, really?
And then I got really into going after the big fish. And then I was catching 6 and 7 pound bass, and I could do it almost I shouldn't say every time, but every couple of times I go out, I catch 5, 6 pound bass, which for up here in New Hampshire is a big fish.
And I bet.
I got bored with it because it got to the point where it wasn't a big challenge anymore. So
sure.
I've always deer hunted, but then I got into hunting big bucks. And that is the biggest challenge of anybody's life.
No doubt.
So I never get bored with it because they change the game on you all the time.
Every year, even the same buck sometimes will act completely different one year to the next. So I hear you on that. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm just like you is you never feel like you've reached the top, and you're always striving to get there. And even though you're getting better every year, it's like it's an endless climb.
I always act like it's Sherlock Holmes. Yeah. You're always looking for that mystery. You're always looking for those little clues and trying to take deductive reasoning and put it together for that deer. And then it pulls a Moriarty on you and does something completely different. Now you got to start all the way back to the beginning and start over. And it just makes it so much more fun. People don't get it. They think you're crazy. What, you spent all season chasing that one buck and he made you look like a fool? Yeah, but now I know what he did and how to fix it.
Yeah, and the whole chase is a lot of fun. People think that it's all about, when that final moment when you finally do get them. And I mean, that's awesome too. But the whole chase and the whole hunt itself, whether it takes a year or two, it's all worth it. And every part of the phase is just as good as the first or the beginning or the end.
It's almost a letdown. The one I killed this year, Odd Job, it really affected me. I put a lot of time into that deer. I patterned him. I watched him. I've seen him so many times, and I finally kill him. And it was almost like I don't know. I can't even, like your kid just left home to college or something, you know? It was crazy, you know?
You lost your best friend.
Yeah, pretty much. It's weird. And I've heard like Dean Partridge did the same thing on that one big buck that he was after. He really had a hard time afterwards. Hit him. It hurt. I think it actually hurt him that he
Sure.
had to kill the buck because it's like killing a buddy.
Yeah. Or just there's so much time and effort, and then once you achieve that success on a particular deer, you don't know sometimes where to start, or you were just so in the zone with it. So I can definitely see where you're coming from.
Now, a deer's individual traits, I wrote all these questions down because I've
Sure.
never remembered them, but a deer's individual traits play a big part on how a person should hunt a specific deer. How do you select a method for a homebody compared to a range buck? You know,
You mean like
a buck that likes to go everywhere.
Yep. I think it depends on the time of the year too. Like, I feel like certain bucks are more killable at certain times of the year. Some of them early season, some of them maybe in the rut, maybe even some of them later in the season. And that's kind of what I go by. Big woods, I see some bucks that have a smaller core area, and then some bucks they kind of have a home range, but they bounce all over the place. In the early part of the season, I try to pursue like a deer that has a little bit smaller range, like an archery season, maybe if I really get a feel on like a core bedding area that he's using. And then those other like roamer bucks, you can kind of take a stab at, during the rut, or, if you like get snow and gun season. And I think that's another good way, although I'm probably not near as good of a tracker as some of you guys up north, but just, that would be a time when I would pursue a roamer, because you could cut his track and stay on him. But, those roamer bucks, in my opinion, are the hardest to hunt, because it's just, you can never exactly pinpoint where they're at or what they're going to do.
It always seems that those roaming bucks, they tend to get shot by somebody who just accidentally runs into them. It's totally. Never the guy who's after them.
Yep. I see that happen here every year. Like there's certain deer, like, I run a lot of cameras, and I see some bucks, bouncing all over the place, mile to mile. And you're like, uh-oh, this guy, I know he's smart, but he's really taking some chances, because he's going through a lot of areas that are going to be dangerous, getting from point A to point B. And like you said, those are deer that a lot of times make a mistake, versus one that he's figured everyone out and kind of has like that special hiding place that, either no one can get to, or he can just watch everyone and stay away that way.
I mean, they've got incredible instincts and nose and everything, but I think once they get on ground that they're not completely familiar with.
Yep, that's true too.
So, and I think that's why so many 3 and 4 year olds get killed during the rut, is because they're going places they've never been.
Yep, exactly. Yep, and even like also in gun season, if you get some pressure and a buck kind of gets bumped out of his safe haven, and God knows where he's going to go. Maybe he makes a big circle and comes back, but once he's out of that safe zone, he's really taking some risk. And those are a lot of times when a deer of that caliber and that type of personality gets killed.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Now, when you're hunting, say you're bow hunting, do you pay more attention? Because I've heard you say that you don't pay a whole lot of attention to the wind in certain circumstances, but do you pay more attention to the thermals or to the prevailing wind?
It seems like if I was gonna, if I'm hunting an area like a morning or evening spot, when I feel are the two most crucial times for thermals, like, mornings are rising, evenings are dropping, I think I pay a lot more attention to thermals then, especially in the evening, because a lot of times I'll notice the wind to die down in the evening, but then you feel like that thermal pull. So time of day, it really plays a part, but I don't know about where you're at, but it's all mountains here. And just the problem here is just, it's hard to find consistent wind in these mountains. There are spots where it blows more consistently than others, but then there's a lot of places, especially some really good big buck spots, where the wind's always swirling. And honestly, I think some of those deer like that. That goes against what a lot of hunters say, but I think a buck kind of likes to get a sniff of wind from different directions sometime, versus wind just staying the certain way, because his nose, we all know, is his best defense. And if he's able to collect scent from a lot of different directions in a short period of time, I think that might exactly be where he wants to be.
That explains, like, the buck that I shot this year. You always hear people say that a buck won't run the very top of a ridge because they don't want to be skylined. Well, he would run the top of the ridge because you have the thermals in the morning. When I'd catch him doing this, would be coming up both sides of the hill.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Run that top and know what's going on both sides.
Yeah, no, they do that.
So it was definitely a learning experience with him. Plus, he always liked to travel with the wind at his back, not in his nose. So, and the younger bucks are always traveling with it in their face, but them older ones I've found like it at their back. I don't know why.
Because an older buck is more concerned about staying alive versus even finding a hot doe. Or I'm not saying that they don't use the wind to find does, but always his number one thing on his mind is going to be, how do I survive another day? And that's able to use his eyes ahead so he can use that defense, and then keep the wind on his back so he can smell. So I know just what you mean by when you see that.
Yep. Now, when you're going to go out and search out a new place to hunt or to guide, is there any key features on a topo that you're looking for yourself? Something that really puts your interest in?
Honestly, not a lot as far as like topographical type stuff. I mean, because it's just mountains everywhere here. Now, when I'm scouting that particular area, I may focus more like on funnels and, benches, saddles, and those kind of things. But I'm really more of like a elevation and cover kind of hunter. I like to, or just from my experiences, that, I find most of the bigger deer here, taking advantage of some kind of cover, higher elevations, usually areas with, less hunting pressure, harder to get to. That's kind of the stuff that I'm looking for. And then if I do see what I want to see in that area, or maybe I locate a deer, then I might use topography as like a secondary type of maybe narrow this area down by finding some key features that way. But overall, when I'm first going to an area, I'm just kind of seeking out cover and, the higher ridge tops and those kind of things.
And you've answered this question. I had this question. Have you found that mature bucks have a preference for certain altitudes or just the high spot in general? So,
and I can add to that, like, everyone, I don't want to like confuse people that are listening and say that, bucks are always up high. They never leave the tops. I mean, especially in the rut, they got to get from one ridge to another. They'll cross then, or, last year we had some really bad drought conditions throughout hunting season, especially archery. And a lot of the bedding shifted because there's just no water up high in the mountains. Yeah. And, you never just want to stick to one thing or one rule of thumb as a deer hunter. You always got to like keep your options open and be prepared to shift and adapt, because, especially in an environment that we hunt, that's big woods, public land, like you have no control over food sources. You have no control over hunting pressure, logging, and forest management, that you just got to always be able to adapt. And, I think that's really important for hunters to just never set your mind to one style or one way. Just always be watching and seeing what the deer are doing, because things will change from time to time.
I'm glad you said that, because I get accused of being contradictory so much when people will ask me a question and I'll tell them, and they'll say, but, there's always the but, because there's so many caveats to what a deer is going to do.
Absolutely.
What did I always say? I always say there's no absolutes in nature.
And that is absolutely right. Yep. Yeah. I totally agree. Yep.
So your mind has to be moving all the time.
Yep. People watch these videos and listen to podcasts, and everyone thinks it's just like one thing. And, you read a book and then you're good, you're golden. But I mean, the more you can get out there, especially, scouting and just constantly paying attention and observing your hunting areas, that's going to be the key, because things are always going to be changing.
Yeah. Weather It could be
Yep.
weather, it could be food sources, it could be, like you said, the water. Last year for me, it was water. That was the main source of every bit of activity, was them coming out of bedding, going to water before anything
Yep.
else, and then going to feed. So
Yep.
that's how we set up. Of course, the buck was smarter than me and figured out my plan, and then switched his water source. He went to a different water source, but that's deer hunting.
That's all part of it.
Yeah. Now, do you find that mature bucks tend to go to north points, north facing?
I would say not like a major percentage. I think the most I see would be north and east facing. A lot of people think south facing, and the only time I really see heavy south facing activity is like in the winter, obviously because it's getting more sun.
Right.
But I would say it's more here. I've noticed like 50-50 north or east. Okay. But I've also seen bucks bet on any part of a point, depending on the visual and the cover in the area. But north points can be really good. I would definitely agree to that.
I'm wondering I've always wondered if it was more of a summer thing, because they want to get out of the heat. And the big bucks tend to like to go on the north face of a mountain anyways to get away from everything, at least in my findings. But
okay.
But I've had them bedding out in the middle of an open clear cut on a little high spot and 90-degree weather when you'd think that they'd want to be in the shade.
Yep. And that just goes back to what we were saying. Like, you can learn things and then be like, well, this day in these conditions, the deer has to be doing this, and they'll still fool you. So that's just deer hunting. And like we said earlier as well, I think that's what keeps us going at it nonstop, because it's unpredictable every time you step foot in the woods.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, you guys don't have this problem, but we have the moose will push them out of places.
Wow.
So, and it's just because it's funny because moose will tend to push out does and smaller bucks, but it almost seems like the bigger bucks like to follow them around. And I almost think they use them as a warning system,
that would make a lot of sense. Yep.
They're taller. They got bigger. I don't know how a moose's nose works, but it's longer and it's bigger. So I would think that it has just as many or more receptors than a whitetail. So
that's what I mean. That, we don't have moose, but we have bears, and I don't think the deer are using the bears, but what I see a lot of times, if there's like a really good food source like white oak acorns or something, and you think that's where the deer are going to be, I'll see like the bears push deer out because there's so much bear activity in there that, the deer don't want to be bothered. So, once again, it's like, that's just another added thing that you got to pay attention to when you're thinking, okay, here's the prime food source, but there's just so many variables out there.
Now you're a big purveyor of clear cuts.
Yep, definitely.
Same here, especially the wilder the place is, the more important a clear cut is.
Sure. Yep. That makes a lot of sense.
When you're looking around a clear cut, what are your keys? What are you looking at a clear cut, and why?
I like clear cuts. If we're going to talk topography a little bit, I like clear cuts that are kind of like hillside clear cuts versus either something in the bottom or like on the flatter part of a ridge. Mm-hmm. I find like the clear cuts that are on like the upper third of ridges that have some slope, I think are really good buck bedding areas. Also, depending on the time of the year, I really like younger clear cuts in the early part of the season because there's also a ton of food in there. I found that, we think of like buck bedding areas and, it just says buck bedding and not feeding, but a lot of the best bedding areas have a good food source in them too. So early season when there's still a lot of green and browse in those clear cuts, I think they're great areas. But then it seems to transition where once kind of like, you get a bunch of frost or snow and, and like those briar thickets kind of open up, they'll still feed in there, but then it seems like they'll transition to the older clear cuts for bedding. So all of the age classes of clear cuts here really seem to be preferred at one time or the year of another. But to me, it seems like it's all based on, time of the year from what I'm seeing.
Do they have a browse preference where you are? Is there one thing that they eat the most?
I think blackberry and raspberry are major like food sources in this area. And it's kind of a good thing too, because you want the forest to regenerate. Not that deer won't eat like oaks and cherry and all that other stuff, but your blackberry and raspberry, there's obviously it's not a timber source, so I think it really blends well with nature. That the deer really seem attracted to that stuff, and then it may not as affect some of those areas where there's uh, really good timber value sources that maybe the deer will lay off a little bit. But definitely blackberry and raspberry, I really like. And also another good reason is those are places that nobody wants to go into because they're full of thorns and it's just nasty country. So the deer have learned that over the years, and they also take advantage because they know nobody's going to go in there and go after them.
Yep. We're doing a big buck camera challenge this year with a bunch of us.
I think I saw that. Yeah, it seems really cool.
Ken Morse.
Yep.
Him and I are kind of in the same area, and he's kind of up on the hillsides. I decided I was going to go into a tick-infested, briar-filled patch, and I did find a really nice 8-pointer laying in the middle of it, and I've got my camera where he's going. So hopefully I win, but I don't know.
Yep. I kid you not, as we speak, I'm getting cell cam pictures popping up on my phone in a spot just like that. So sorry if I get a little distracted.
No, that's fine. Hey, I'd be distracted too. So when do you guys start seeing the shift from the summer bedding, feeding type thing into more of a solitary activity for the bucks?
Yeah. I mean, I don't see it like a light switch, like every buck shifts like the same day or week, but I'll see it anywhere from late August, even all the way up to around the early part of October. And really, I think there's a whole combination of reasons. Food is one of them. Another reason why I see a shift is it seems like once they start to shed their velvet, the testosterone's building, and they've been in those bachelor groups all summer that they go from being friends to hating each other. So, that causes them to split up. Like we mentioned, food, it seems like, when acorns start to drop and other mass, that seems to have a pull on, they've been browsing all summer. Now they're seeking, more fall type food sources. Just so many variables going on at that time of the year, and weather changes. It seems like it's probably the biggest shift you're going to see within bucks at any other time of the year, that late summer, early fall shift. And it can be very challenging, especially when you've been getting pictures all summer and, you're getting excited and feel like you're on to them. And right about when hunting season starts, everything changes. So it's a tricky time. That's for sure.
Now, you guys probably have even though you're big woods hunting, you probably have a higher deer to per square mile concentrate than we do.
We very well could.
I'm running right here. I think we're running around between 4 and 6 deer per square mile.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a few areas like that, but I do some not paid work, but some volunteer work for some of the forestry companies and organizations like that around here, where they do like surveys and deer studies. And I would say on average, what we found is it's probably in between 15 and 20 per square mile on average. Some areas a little bit more and some areas a little less. But then again, I mean, that sounds like a lot, but a square mile is a pretty good piece of ground. That's a mile in every direction within a square. So, even if you have 15 deer in that area, it's no guarantee you're going to get on something easily. Right. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah, and I would imagine as long as you're you have enough biodiversity, enough food, the deer are fine. But I guess it kind of causes a problem once they start eating themselves out of house and home. I mean, I know Pennsylvania's had that issue in the past.
Yep, and although I'm really all in favor of every change Pennsylvania's made, like in the past 20 years, but I do think that deer can probably survive and with more numbers or bigger groups than what a lot of us think. Because I can remember back when I first started hunting, or even before then, before they really, pushed on lowering the deer numbers, there were still some. We didn't have as many big bucks because we didn't have the antler restriction and we had a lot more hunting pressure. But when a guy did shoot like a 130 to 150 inch deer, even though it was rare, like they were huge bodied deer. So the food had to be out there.
Yeah.
I really do think that, it's just amazing what I find, like how deer can survive and all the different kinds of foods that they can eat. I'm not saying that, a lower deer density per square mile is definitely healthier for the herd. But I also think that because they try to keep the numbers here like under 20 per square mile. And I actually think we could hold more than that and still see the same results as what we're seeing now.
Yeah, I know for most of us New Hampshire guys, 20 deer per square mile, we'd think we were in deer heaven. So it's pretty tough. It can be tough. Yep. I mean, I'm consistent. There's a lot of guys up here consistent, but we have the commitment to it. We're committed to it. A lot of guys are just casual hunters and they don't see a deer and then they give up. So
absolutely. I'll just touch on that too. Like I actually, for me, like I'd probably prefer even less deer. Just for the fact that, especially in the rut, what I think when you have less deer is when you can find that, say you might have 6 deer in a square mile and 4 of them are does and 2 are bucks. You pattern those 4 does in the rut and then you're golden because there's not does everywhere. When you have does everywhere, and as far as rut hunting goes, it really makes it more challenging because you're going to have more lockdown. Bucks are going to be extremely more unpredictable. So there's not all bad to having fewer deer. You're just going to have a lot more sits where you see no deer, know?
Exactly. Yep. One thing I've always thought was funny, and I don't know if you think of it this way, but I'll get guys put out cameras and they'll get pissed when all they have is does. And I'm like, you found yourself a good spot for a rut sit right here.
Exactly.
If you're targeting a big buck, when I target a big buck, I do bow hunt, but not to the extent of many people. So when I'm targeting a big buck, it's basically to say, yes, there's one here and I can set up here, but it's almost more important as a gun hunter for me to know where the does are.
Absolutely.
So if I put a camera out and I'm getting all does, I go, okay, check that one off and move, and then go to the next spot, but I'll remember that spot.
Or for the rut like, here's probably the biggest mistake hunters make with trail cameras is, and maybe not quite you, but because you said, you're more of a gun hunter and depending on, when the rut is in your area, but everybody just focuses entirely on getting big bucks on their trail cams, but yet the majority of deer hunters are rut hunters. So the rut is like the time of the year when bucks are going to be the most unpredictable, when they have one thing on their mind, and that's to find a hot doe. So you should be, if you're more of a rut hunter, you should be more focused on finding does and patterning does versus finding bucks, because good luck patterning bucks in the rut, except those does are going to be like your bait. Just sit on them and, the bucks are going to come.
It's like catfishing that time of the year. Okay, so I can see we're getting a little slow on time here, but
it's okay. We're doing all right.
The October lull, do you believe in it? And what is it?
What I believe is it's somewhat true, but not entirely. Like, I think what I'm finding, especially with running a lot of cameras, is, it's probably a time of year when there's less ground coverage I'm seeing in the daytime. I think bucks will move a fair amount at night, but it seems like they stay tight within their bedding areas or within cover during that lull period, maybe like from early October to mid-October. So I think it's somewhat true, but I also think it's gotten a bad rap on, October hunting that time of year. Like, I also think that time of year is possibly one of the best time of year to kill a particular buck, especially if you do have a buck that you feel is kind of sticking to a smaller core area, because that's just a certain time of the year when once you pinpoint him and you know exactly where he's at, then that's probably your best chance to make a move on a deer like that. So I think it's true to a certain extent, but it's not as bad and severe as what some people think.
Yep.
I'd like to hear your opinion on that as well.
I'll agree with you on that, and I think what they're doing is they go nocturnal more than anything else in the beginning of October, and then about the 15th of October, all hell breaks loose. That testosterone peaks, they get crazy, because I can tell you from my scrape, because I run a lot of community scrapes and stuff like that, it'll go dead. About October 1st to the 15th, there's not a whole lot of activity. And then bam, I'll have 20 deer go by one scrape in one night. Big buck, all the ones I've never seen before. Because they're just all just running all these scrape lines and just checking for does and heat. They're looking for that first one. So
and that's a time period that I call the rut shift, where, I'll hunt a buck that, we talked about earlier, bucks that range and then bucks that don't range as much. In the early season, I'm targeting those bucks that aren't ranging as much. But then it seems like every year around October 15th, those bucks are gone from those areas. And then that's what I call the rut shift, is they're getting ready for the rut and they're patterning does and figuring things out, because, in a couple of weeks, they're in heaven for a short period of time, I guess.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think that you're right. I think that 15th to the 31st, if you're a bow hunter and you find a good funnel with the does moving through in the morning, and you can, I mean, a lot of guys don't like hunting bow in the morning because of getting in. But if you can set it up so you're in between where they're feeding and bedding, and you find a good funnel, you're going to see. I had that one sit. I sat there. I saw 6 bucks in one morning. For me, that's a lot. And they were all shooters chasing this one big old doe that was in heat. It was October 16th. And I've never seen anything like that in my life. So from that point on, that spot, we call it the hub. It's like a bunch of different trails all coming through. That's been a good spot for me. But I think anybody who's bow hunting, that's a good time to do it, is right then, right between 15th and 31st.
Yep. I just finished an article with North American Whitetail on October hunting. And I talked about, like, my actual favorite time to hunt is like the 20th to the 31st. Sometimes a little earlier than that too, maybe in the late teens of October. And what you also find is it seems like the bucks are ready earlier than the does, and they're out cruising more in the daylight then. They're making scrapes. There's hardly any lockdown because there's no hot does. I know you saw one in mid-October, and there's probably a few, but most of the does come in heat here, around in November. So I just think November is just gotten so much advertisement over the years that, hunters are overlooking October, and actually October, the mid to latter part, could probably be the best as far as that, like, cruising buck activity, that nonstop type cruising.
Without a doubt. Now, as far as, let's go into a couple of things here real quick. Scent control. What do you do for scent control?
Well, there might be some people that, don't like what I say, but I don't do anything for scent control. No. Now, I can't say I've tried every product. I've tried a lot of different things. I thought I have done it as good as I could. And then, I get out there, and after taking at least an hour before every hunt to shower and do my clothing right, and then I get winded, I just got frustrated. And I'm not saying that scent that stuff doesn't work, but I also, then, are you telling me for sure that every deer that goes downwind of you, doesn't smell you? Then why am I doing all this scent control type stuff and then watching the wind as well? So from what I've seen and what I've gathered, I can't find a way to beat a deer's nose yet, and I don't know if I ever will.
No, I agree. I use that zero trace in the tent blind, and it tends to make it so unless the deer is really close, 20 yards or closer, he doesn't get me. But once they get in beyond that 20-yard zone, it don't matter. They know I'm there, even with the zero trace. So, and when I'm gun hunting, I think bacon and coffee is pretty much what I use. So it seems to, I don't know it seems to work. So I guess I'll stick with it.
I kid you not. I've actually said that on other videos and podcasts when, at deer camp with like 20 guys and we have bacon every morning. We all smell like bacon. And I'm not even joking around. Like maybe, just maybe it is like some kind of a cover scent because I don't think a deer knows what bacon is and it's probably not an intruding smell. So for all I know, that might as well work just as good as anything. So,
well, to get on that, Native Americans used to smoke themselves
with a
blanket to cover their scent before a hunt.
Yep.
So more than likely, it's the smoke smell in it that's helping cover your scent, which makes complete sense.
Absolutely.
Now, as far as tree stand height, because I don't go in tree stands, I am so petrified of heights. Just climbing a set of stairs makes me nauseous. So, as far as tree stand height goes, what is your preferred tree stand height, or is it matter?
My preferred height is probably honestly like 12, 15 feet if I have cover. I'm not really afraid of heights, and I almost always hunt out of a tree stand, but I as well feel more comfortable like 12 to 15 feet versus like 20 or 30. When you do get up at that height, you look at your feet, you're on this little platform. I just think it kind of messes with your head a little bit as far as, you draw back, or even if you're using a gun, like you're in your mind, you're more concerned about not falling than, getting stable and making a good shot. But it seems when I'm anywhere, 10 to 15 feet off the ground, I'm just more comfortable. I feel safer. And as long as I have cover, I don't think it really makes hardly any difference. Once again, some people say you can get 20, 30, 40 feet in the air and then deer won't smell you because, your scent's blowing over them. But I think it's kind of like if you were to be up there with like a spray bottle, your scent is going down low to the ground. It's blowing up high. Like it's just like a big cloud that goes all over the place. So I don't really want to say, or in my experience, I don't think getting higher helps your scent as much as what I've heard others say. It's more about getting slightly above a deer's visual and just using that cover. But just like you, I mean, if you have good cover on the ground, you can do just as well. Another reason why I like tree stands, though, I will say, is a lot of times I can see a little bit better. Being 10, 15 feet up, I can see another bench over the ridge but I'm all for ground hunting as well. And if that's where you're comfortable, that's where you need to be hunting. It's all about being comfortable and just able to make a good shot.
Yep. I know Zach Varenbaugh has proven that time after time that you can do it on the ground. So
absolutely.
And the other problem, we do the blood tracking, the leash blood tracking with the dog, and we find the higher the tree stand is, the more apt you're to one lung it or pass through it, that you're not going to kill it.
That's a great point. That's a great point. So once again, our best stand last year, even guiding, was literally like 10 feet off the ground, and we shot 3 bucks out of it. So just goes to show. Because at first, a couple guys I put in that stand, they're like, "Holy cow, Steve! I might as well just sit on the ground versus getting up in this hemlock." But it was a hemlock, and hemlocks have a ton of cover, so it was just up there enough. And I also guiding, like, if we ever did have an accident, I mean, we make people wear safety belts, but I feel a lot better if a guy falls 10 feet out of a tree versus 20 or 30. So just many reasons why I think, that 10 to 15 foot range is going to be just as good, if not better.
Yep. I agree. Well, we're at the end of the time here. So what I'd like to do is tell people where they can get a hold of you and look up your guide service and that kind of, all that shenanigans that they have for the social media these days.
Yep. It's easy to find me on Facebook or Instagram. It's Sherk's Guide Service. I also have a website, sherksguideservice.com. And I do want to say, I don't want to turn anyone down for future hunts, but we are booked for 2021. But feel free to still contact me because we'll probably be taking some new clients on in 2022. So, especially, I'm guessing, we got a lot of guys from the New England states and Northeast listening to this. And that's actually where we get most of our hunters. A lot of guys from like Massachusetts, Vermont, even New Hampshire and Maine. We've really enjoyed those kind of hunters because got from up your way, it's similar to here. Like this is hard big woods hunting. It's you guys, just like you said, you're used to hunting low deer density areas, and we find that the northern guys tend to be like what we call grinders, and they can stick it out a day or two if they haven't seen a deer because they've been doing that for years versus some guy, in the Midwest that nothing against Midwest hunters, but they probably have a lot more action than some of us guys. So we love the guys from the northeastern part of the states, and we definitely hope that these guys continue to be some of our top-notch clients. That's for sure.
Oh, thanks a lot. We do us Northerners do appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
Well, thanks a lot, Steve, and I hope to talk to you again because I have a million more questions to ask you, and this was a great interview. So thanks a lot.
Yeah. I really enjoyed being on this, and I definitely want to do it again. So thanks for having me.
All right, we'll set it up. You have a good week.
All right, take care.
You too.